Phase A. Explosions!
Hard to port!
She shouted. The captain swiped blonde hair from her eyes. She barely kept hold of the navigation wheel as her ship lurched violently to the left, crackling from the intercom.
Eve, we got another one.
Incoming, I know.
Eve growled. She leered over at the 5-foot-tall dragon Tatsu. The dragon nodded and pressed a button, unleashing steam vents on the right side of the ship.
Brace for impact. Hard to starboard.
The captain ordered. Yet another tremendous impact, this time on the left side of the SAS MetalWorx. Captain Eve spun the brass control wheel, desperate to reclaim control of the pneumatic cloud vessel.
Bloody sky sharks, why do they keep coming after us?
It was the intercom again. Charles A., the engineer, was below decks and had his hands more than full. The dwarf hadn't been briefed by his captain, and Eve didn't have the time to answer right now, even though she did technically have the answer. As the SAS MetalWorx dodged explosive rounds, it deftly wafted through pink and purple cloud banks. The pneumatic and electromagnetic sky trawler was old, but it still had its tricks. Captain Eve looked up ahead at the darkening skies. The sun had finally, restlessly, relented to rest. Now the SAS MetalWorx and its crew were headed into the oncoming storm, with pirates in hot pursuit. The sky was the only domain left to Captain Evil and her lot. Piloting the slipstream like tide, she headed from the yellow, fluffy white clouds into the orange and now the pink and purple. Up ahead, she noted the dark violet and undulating bruised gray of the upcoming cloud bank. Lightning already.
Lightning field.
Eve muttered to herself. Tatsu looked over at her. The miniature dragon was mute, so he couldn't advise her. He puffed out some flame through his nostrils. This, apparently, was enough to convey the captain his thoughts. She shook her head.
Oh, go to hell.
Another blast. This one overhead, and Evil dove, slamming down the copper steering wheel as far as it would go, plummeting SAS MetalWorx to a charring on its top, but little else. Behind the steampunk airship, the Sky Shark vessel was looming. The gigantic iron frame of the pursuing pirate ship opened, creaking outward. The closer it moved to the MetalWorx, the wider it opened, and now the pirate vessel had the bay doors open to 40 feet. The outside coating of paint indeed made the Sky Shark pirate ship look similar to its namesake. The shark was coming, gliding through air currents like it was swimming after prey. Captain Evil had but one option. She glanced down at the hostage, Z-Money. He was the king of the Sky Sharks, the head pirate, as it were. Eve shook her head and looked over at Tatsu. The miniature dragon reluctantly pressed the pneumatic charge relay button.
Oh, hell.
Charlie shouted.
We're seriously going into that storm?
Hold fast. We're going in hot.
She ordered. As the SAS MetalWorx entered the darkening, foreboding cloud bank, it began to be struck by lightning. The intercom crackled in response.
Oh, the things we do for love.
Phase B. SAS MetalWorx cut electromagnetic power and Charles A switched to backup solar collective. As the air vessels entered the massive thunderstorm, the MetalWorx expanded a pair of 30-foot-long wings on either side. They were leathery and bat-like, flapping up and down slowly and with powerful grace. The Sky Shark ship was a converted B-52 bomber of the type that the ancient Earthers would have called a flying fortress. The front had been converted to a bay opening as well, and underneath the pilot cockpit, the gargantuan cone of the antique bomber resembled the gaping maw of a flying shark, complete with haphazardly painted fangs. Captain Eve addressed her second-in-command, the silent dragon known as Tatsu.
Hit up the gunnery turret. Should have enough solar units there to fire a barrage.
The 5-foot reptile belched a flicker of flame and jumped from his stool, running across the control cabin and out onto the back deck. Tatsu was outside in the rain, the lightning looming overhead. He slammed his foot onto a hidden lever, and a chunk of the back deck opened, grinding wide to reveal a massive Gatling gun. The Gatling gun slowly rose, and Tatsu hopped into the oversized seat. He stared at the rudimentary target, a simple cross and circle at the end of the weapon. He aimed. Tatsu pressed the firing trigger, and solar units converted to instant energy, blasting out 50 thin iron harpoons, each about 3 feet in length. The face of the sky shark was suddenly impaled, giant arrows of metal impaling its open, gaping jaw. Tatsu jumped from the steam and solar-powered harpoon gun, and the quiet dragon sped as quickly as he could back into the cabin with his captain. Evil smiled at him, then looked at the monitor display. The sky shark was much more massive than MetalWorx, and the vehicle now appeared as if it had been attacked by an iron porcupine. Giant iron barbs stabbing outward. Being as the sky shark was much more massive than MetalWorx and was now front-loaded with iron, it was only a matter of time before it gathered the attention of the local lightning. And that time came quickly. The captain watched as the Predator air vessel behind her was struck a half a dozen times, viciously slammed by electromagnetic bolts as if Zeus himself were personally aggrieved. The sky shark dove, but not of its own volition. Having foolishly pursued the SAS MetalWorx, it learned, the hard way, that science, intellect, and quick thinking can easily defeat a larger, stronger, and much tougher foe.
Great job.
Came the sudden voice of Z-Money.
You took out my lead vehicle. No matter.
Grumbled the king of the sky sharks, now fully awake.
I only want to know 2 things. 1, who the hell are you? And 2, why the hell did you kidnap me?
Captain Evil looked down at him.
The answer to both questions is pretty simple. I'm your fiancé, damn it.
SAS MetalWorx continued. That haphazard bucket of scrap iron and steam, held together by metal rivets in a dream. Its wings flapped onward. Phase C.
Stunned,
He said.
in a word,
The captain had asked what he thought.
and
Z-Money finished.
I don't believe you.
Of course not. You've been brainwashed.
Z-Money shook his head.
By the sky sharks? By my own people? You have lost your mind.
Eve shook her head.
No. Fact is, you've lost yours, or they've taken it from you.
I don't.
Eve interrupted before her amnesiac enthroned could continue.
Knock him out. I knew this wouldn't work.
Still bound and unable to really move anywhere, Z-Money watched Tatsu walk over to him. He felt the 5-foot-tall dragon thud him on the top of the head, and Z-Money went back to sleep. Abruptly, the SAS MetalWorx was diving, virtually swimming downward through the clouds, massive wings flapping.
I don't have power reconnected.
The intercom complained.
Why are we descending?
Eve replied to Charles A.
I've got to get his memories back, and we aren't even close to the Sky Trench.
Okay,
The engineer said.
you're the captain, but the irradiated waters? Medically, there's no reason for it to work.
The captain shook her head, and she wiped her brow.
I'm going to dive down, just far enough to collect the sum. Won't take but a moment, rest assured.
Breaking through the lower cloud bank, the steampunk airship dove down through shimmering pink and purple skies. It flapped, then spread its wings, slowly arcing lower until parallel to the bright blue water. The MetalWorx skimmed the surface of the irradiated ocean. Tatsu stepped out back once more on the deck. Noting the empty harpoon turret, he leaned over and gathered a flask of the strangely glowing liquid. SAS MetalWorx sped along the surface for a moment before gaining height, struggling for atmosphere. Eventually, the old flying bucket disappeared into the distant, ever-setting sun. Phase X. Captain Evil opened the mouth of her mentally assaulted fiancé. She kissed his cheek before she thrust the vial of illuminated neon blue water down his throat. Z-Money choked and sputtered as the irradiated liquid absorbed into his entire system. The captain explained.
You probably don't remember this, but long ago, back when we could walk the surface, there was a virus, and we thought the virus would kill us all. The virus wasn't the problem. I mean, it was bad, but it was the vaccine that killed most of us, really. There was nothing wrong with the vaccine in and of itself.
She blinked, thinking, remembering.
It was when all the nations of the Earth began fighting for the vaccine that the nuclear fallout happened.
Tatsu was listening in bemusement. staring out the viewing screen at the destroyed, decimated landscape that jutted out from beneath them. Towers, skyscrapers, endless buildings, all laid to waste.
So he took to the skies, knowing that if we ended up staying on the surface too long, we'd be bombarded with cancer. Our DNA's disentangling nearly instantly. The vaccine somehow mutated, with the radiation becoming something else entirely.
She stared down at Z-Money, whom had lost the capability of speech. His eyes were now glowing that strange, iridescent blue. The illumination of his indigo eyes cast an eerie glow about her stateroom. The captain finished.
Now, the waters of the planet below all have trace amount of the mutated vaccine. And what does it do, you may ask?
Z-Money continued to stare at her in silence, eyes like blue headlights.
It restores you, for lack of a better term. It restores you to your healthiest prime.
Tatsu stopped listening, abruptly jumped up from his stool and waddled down toward the engineering deck to hang out with Charles A. Eve finished, returning her attention to the bronze steering wheel.
For you, that means when you wake up, all the mental programming that the Sky Sharks put you through will have vanished. I'm a bit iffy on how much you should have drunk and what the side effects are, but I'm pretty sure it's going to work. I have faith. Besides, everybody says it takes a lot of balls to try the irradiated waters.
The captain smiled, her gorgeous eyes twinkling.
Luckily, I'm an adult woman. I don't need balls to try things.
Phase Y. With a hot blast of noise, the electromagnetic plates sprung to ionic life, and SAS MetalWorx was propelled further upward into the atmosphere. Its massive wings folded back in as the pneumatic trawler cruised through cerulean skies, amethyst and amber, indigo and turquoise. The clouds were gigantic kingdoms unto themselves, towering over the tiny MetalWorx and its crew. They were nearing the sky trench. Haven. Home.
Special aerial service. MetalWorx to Sky Trench.
Charles A. clenched a cask of spiced rum in one hand, a communicator in the other.
Repeat, this is the SAS MetalWorx to Sky Survivor Base. Trench, over.
Nothing. Captain Evil entered the bridge, wiping her mouth.
They have the CWE turned on, dork. We need to get Tatsu up here.
How'd it go with old Prince Monet?
The dwarf engineer stared up at her. She shrugged.
Letting my fiancé know that he was kidnapped, mind-wiped, and then led to believe he was the king of space pirates.
She grabbed his spiced rum, taking a searching gulp. Then she wiped her plump red lips.
That settled easy enough, but the going's slow. Let's not spring the whole "he's the prince of the survivors" bag yet.
Charles A. held out his empty hand, demanding his bottle back.
Yeah. We'll keep it Mom's for now, lass.
That's Captain.
She handed back his rum. Charles A. took a swig and wandered off as Z-Money re-entered the control room.
None of this seems real.
The partial amnesiac royalty was shaking his head. Eve embraced her fiancé, squeezing him into her tightly.
You'll be right as rain soon. Safe as houses used to be.
Z-Money smiled and kissed her. Before she became too enamored, she returned her attention to her duties.
Tatsu, report to the bridge.
The miniature mute dragon returned from reloading the pneumatic harpoon cannon.
This is where you come in.
Eve pointed to the roof. Tatsu nodded. Phase Z. The sky trench enveloped itself in a rugged field of electromagnetic energy. Hot, sparking, crackling lightning perpetually shielded one particular cloud, hidden among the clouds in the Cloud Kingdom. The CWE, known as the chaotic weather electromagnetism, could only be bypassed by one method. Tatsu was a genetically engineered creature, and while this miniature dragon may not be able to converse, it could do one thing rather well: sing. Tatsu opened his scaly mouth to reveal sharp reptilian teeth, but so much more. From his voice box came a resonance, a vibration. This vibration resonated at a hypersonic frequency, and though no sound could be heard by humans, the light he produced could be seen. An explosion of emerald light blasted forth from the miniature dragon, and in the distance, Captain Evil, standing by Charles A. and Z-Money, watched a dark gray, bruised cloud in the distance begin to undulate. The dragon's light parted the storm clouds before them, indigo, violet, threatening Viridian. All the darkened storm fronts evaporated,